Okay, so as she said, I'm currently working in a consultancy in the UK, but I'm also a PhD student in the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. So my presentation is going to be mostly focused on my doctoral research, because it's also the way I got in touch with JELARE, through my doctoral research. I got to know JELARE in a conference we did in Chile, and also through Guillermo in Universidad de Chile, because I was studying, one of my case studies was one of the projects of Universidad de Chile. So also I'm an economist, even though I'm doing my PhD in the engineering school. So I'm mostly interested and I'm mostly capable in the framework that enables technology transfers more than its implementation. So I'm interested in the economic factors and political factors that make technology transfer happen and make it fuel economic growth in the countries that receive it. So this is the contents of my presentation. I will skip through the introduction of my company because I don't have that much time. I can talk to you about it later on. As I said, I'm interested in the policy framework that enables technology transfer, initially through an international policy background. So I will introduce why technology transfer is important through an international perspective. In the international climate change negotiations, the emissions of developing countries are becoming a more and more important topic, because countries are realizing that if we don't reduce emissions in developing countries, an international agreement cannot be successful. Because at the moment they are growing much faster and they are bigger than emissions in developed countries. So also developing countries are not very happy with the idea of setting caps to their emissions, because emissions are related to economic growth and they still want to grow to eradicate poverty. So they are much more happy with an idea of low carbon development through technology than through setting caps to their emissions. In this context, technology has become a pillar of the international climate change negotiations. However, the mechanisms that the UNFCCC has put in place, like the CDM or the GEF or the technology needs agreements, assessments, they have not been very successful to date. And some of the reasons are, firstly, that they are very far away from the private sector. They are very political discussions that need consensus. They are very long. They are very far away from the business environment that is much faster. The private sector is not really very engaged, and discussions are led by political appointees more than technology experts. Also, it's based on project-by-project approaches like the CDM, which have an impact at the project level, but don't really attack the enabling frameworks of a nation, which is what enables technology and makes it grow in a country. Also, at the international level, there is not a differentiation between the developing countries. So they put in the same bag China, for example, and Guatemala, which have very different needs. So in the end, China gets all the investment, and Guatemala doesn't get that much, because they have the same policy for both types of countries. So there is a need, first, to understand what are the enabling frameworks for technology transfer, and second, to create policies that are appropriate for the reality of each country. So in my thesis, I had a number of research questions. I would like to tell you about my thesis, but I only have 15 minutes. So I have to concentrate in one of the questions, which is which are the factors that drive and enable climate change technology transfer to developing countries. The methodology that I used, first I reviewed all the literature to know which are the factors that have worked in different country circumstances. Then I analyzed 10 case studies of technology transfer in Chile, climate change technology transfer in Chile, among which 2 case studies of Universidad de Chile. And then I developed some models to understand which are the factors that have an impact on technology transfer, how do different developing countries perform in these factors, and how you can create clusters of countries according to their performance. So I came up at the end with 4 clusters of countries. You would have like the technology developers, which are mostly big countries, like Brazil or China or India. Then you have technology implementers, which are countries with good conditions but too small or with too little industry fabric to develop their own technologies. So Chile would be a bit in the limit of technology developers and technology implementers. Costa Rica would be an implementer. Then you have countries that are aid recipients because they just don't have the capabilities, such as, for example, most African countries. And other countries that need structural changes to, so they are not poor countries, but they are very much focused on fossil fuels for their economy, such as Russia could be one of them, and so on. So I'm going to focus on the literature review and case studies, just because I have to narrow down all that I want to tell you about. In the literature review, we see that there are a number of factors that make some countries more able to receive, to implement, and to create new technologies when they use foreign technologies. And this can be classified in 4 types of factors, which are economic and institutional frameworks. For example, countries where it's easy to do business, that have stable and transparent policies, where there is protection of intellectual property rights. They have open trade, which enables the flow of foreign technologies to the country, and low corruption that attracts foreign investors. Then we have technology demand factors, which is the factors that create a demand for the foreign technologies. And this could be the size of the countries, like countries with a massive GDP like China attract a lot of investors, or Brazil. Demand growth that indicates the future potential. Electricity prices. Countries with very high electricity prices are indicating that there is a high demand for energy, and renewable energy makes more sense because it can compete, well, maybe not fully, but it's more close to competition with fossil fuels. And also demand pull policies like feed-in tariffs or green tradable certificates, taxes, emissions trading schemes, etc. Technology supply factors that enable a country to have the base to receive and use technologies, so have fun. And industrial development that enables countries, once they have received the technology, to generate their own technologies. Then the case studies, I analyzed 10 case studies in Chile, and it's a big variety of companies and technology types. This is the list. For example, Fibrobent is a Chilean company that is trying to develop wind components, wind blades. You also have Universidad de Chile, who is developing micro hydro turbines, or they have created as well the Lithium Innovation Center. You have as well SQM, which is a mining company. Mining is the biggest sector in Chile and the source of most of their wealth. So they are producing salts that are used for energy storage in concentrated solar power plants. So it's a very low value activity. It's just production of raw materials. So it was interesting to see why they have not been able to create more value through this activity. Also, there is the case of multinational companies that are investing in Chile in renewable energy projects, or are trying to develop them and finding barriers. So it was interesting to see what were the barriers that they were finding. I wanted to focus on 3 specific projects that I think that reflect somehow the variety of circumstances that I found. But I will explain first the framework that I used to analyze the case studies. So in a technology transfer process, there are 3 steps, you could say, or 3 elements. First, you need technology inputs, which are, say, knowledge or equipment or natural resources or human capital. And you have on one side the local inputs, and technology transfer at the international level happens when a country realizes that they are not enough to develop technologies. But in any case, you always need a local base to enable foreign technologies to flourish in a local environment. So you need some drivers and enablers of these local inputs. And there are also drivers and enablers of external inputs. For example, in Europe, feed-in tariffs have fueled the technological development. So this is a driver and enabler of technological development, foreign technological development. Then you also need some channels to enable the foreign technologies to flow to the local economy. Call it imports or foreign personnel working in the economy, or patents, or foreign direct investment. And you need also enablers to enable these foreign technologies to flow to the local economy. Call it open economy, or incentives to foreign investment, or facilities for foreign staff to work in the country. You also, well, there is another element, which is the technology outputs you get with the technology, which could be, for example, the implementation of renewable energy projects or the production of new technologies. And you need enabling factors as well for that, which could be, for example, feed-in tariffs or a large demand, etc. And then the last element would be technology effects or spillovers, which is when you go beyond using the technology to create your own technology, or to spill over some knowledge to suppliers, local suppliers, or local universities. And you also need enabling factors for this.